Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Tech in 10, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs postgame show from the Ruston Daily Leader. I am sports editor Matt Bellinson coming to you after Louisiana Tech's 49-14 win over the New Mexico State Aggies. You heard that correctly. Louisiana Tech scored 49 points tonight. That is not a breaking news headline here. I think let's start there before we dive into I think maybe the big picture things. I think first of all, it was just good to get a win. I think we kind of get lost sometimes in these September games, and regardless of what conference or what division you're in, I think a lot of times in September you're still kind of searching for like what is this team, like what can I know for sure about this team and program. And I mentioned last week that I felt confident in saying that Louisiana Tech had a top 25 defense in the country. I think they proved that is true once again this week. And but again, I think you left Baton Rouge last week encouraged by your defense and puzzled and frankly, I think worried about your offense. Is this going to be a repeat of 2024? And I came into tonight, frankly, kind of looking to see does this offense have a different spark? We knew going into this game that there was going to be a quarterback change. We knew that the way Sonny Cumbie was talking about it in the midweek, and frankly the LSU postgame press conference, that this offense was just not producing. I mean, they had 3 offensive touchdowns through 2 games. Their starting quarterback through 2 games combined had less than 180 passing yards. And so it was one of those things where you're thinking, man, like again, it's only week 3, but is this a situation where this offense just continues to spiral, or are they going to pull themselves out of it? And again, it's one game. They certainly have a lot more to prove. There's a lot more conference games ahead of them. There's a Southern Miss game coming up here next weekend that we'll talk about in a little bit. But for at least for tonight, for the Conference USA opener, very encouraging. I mean, Louisiana Tech, puts up nearly 600 yards of total offense, over 300 yards rushing. I think that's a really encouraging sign for this Tony Franklin offense. I mean, you saw it tonight if you watched. This offense starts with the run game. Whether it be quarterback power, inside zone, outside zone, like they want to get the ball in space, and it starts with the run game. I think at times they could get a little too horizontal in the run game. I think instead of just being kind of a smash mouth, we're going to run it up at you times, running game, which again, I think maybe they don't have the running back, in terms of the physicality, and I think maybe the skill set to get that done at times. And I think that's why you see this Louisiana Tech offense kind of want to get these running backs in space on the outside, kind of hit the edge a little bit more, I think, rather than be kind of that downhill run team. Again, maybe when they face some better opponents, maybe that'll come back to hurt them. But at least for tonight, I mean, you rush for 300 yards. That'll certainly play, no matter who you're playing. And so I think offensively, it was just a really encouraging night to see that there was such a balance. I think in both the run and the pass, I think I had called for it. Fans have been calling for it. I've seen your comments and reaction that this passing game was just non existent. They did not stretch the field. They did not threaten downfield passing wise through the first 2 games. No wide receivers had really stepped up in a meaningful way. Eli Finley had a nice game 1, but was basically a no-show in Baton Rouge, and he did not have a catch tonight against. But again, when you're running for 300 yards, I don't really think you need to involve your tight end a whole lot. So it was just one of those things that I think offensively you were searching for answers, searching to figure out, does this offense really have the pieces in place? And I thought Blake Baker did a great job tonight. Over 300 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. You'll take that in your first career college start. Again, New Mexico State, I don't think they're going to end up being very good. They had a pretty opportunistic defense coming in, but offensively they were very one-dimensional on this team to refuse to run the football, and frankly couldn't when they tried to. They certainly made a lot of explosive plays in the pass game. You could clearly see at times that's why this team has been off to a 2-0 start. They have an explosive quarterback. They have an explosive group of wide receivers, and Louisiana Tech got burned a couple times. Gave up 250 yards of total offense in the first half, and again, it's only 14 points total, but I think at times you were kind of thinking, man, like, does this defense have enough in them to kind of keep this offense at bay at times? I mean, they were taking a lot of downfield shots. They were affecting Louisiana Tech's defensive backs once again after we saw them kind of get, I don't want to say exposed, but certainly Garrett Nussmeier and that LSU offense, they took advantage of, I think, some over aggressiveness in their man defense, and caused a lot of pass interference plays, and I think it led to Louisiana Tech's defense kind of I think finally breaking in that LSU game. You saw tonight that there were a couple plays, a couple penalties that certainly hurt, but by and large, you give up 14 points, 3 takeaways, you force 7 punts, and allow 1 third down conversion. You're going to be okay, especially when your offense is doing what it's doing. So I definitely want to say that the offense was the biggest. I think number one, it was the biggest question coming in, and coming out. Again, I'm not saying that the answers are solved. Let's put the Blake Baker statue up at Joy Stadium, but at the same time, I think it's been a long time since I've seen this offense really exploit downfield passing. We saw it at times with Evan Bullock. I'm thinking back to a couple of some of the non-conference games that he played in, and then as well in conference play. But by and large, this was an offense last year in the passing game that frankly just kind of took what the defense gave you. A couple of play action shots here and there, but they weren't exactly a team that threatened downfield. They were not an explosive passing game, drive after drive. And man, you saw tonight that the run game was there, and they built off of that. And I think it was really encouraging to see again that a guy that Blake Baker, he has less than 50 collegiate pass attempts. He had never started a collegiate game. And from drive one on, I mean, he looked very comfortable, pressure in his face. He was completing passes. I thought they did a really good job. A lot of misdirection tonight. I think they saw maybe at times they got a little too cute. I think it was that 3rd-down-and-1, 3rd-down-and-3, whatever it was, the reverse flea flicker. I'm not a huge fan of that play call, especially when you're, when you were running the ball as effectively as you were. So I think there was maybe the one instance where I think he got a little too cute. But by and large, I thought Blake looked really comfortable tonight. I thought the passing game was there. Obviously, Jalen Mickens is a true freshman. Obviously had the 40-yard touchdown. Marlon Jackson, a 40-yard touchdown. Devin Gandy early on was getting involved. I think you're starting to see that the receiving core for this team is kind of solidifying. I think those 3 guys that I mentioned, they're going to rotate, obviously, a couple more guys in there as well to get them some opportunities. But it seems like those 3 are going to be the 3 receiving options that you're going to see this year. So I would definitely say it's encouraging to see those explosive plays come out. And especially in their one-on-one opportunities as well. There was a lot of man coverage tonight. A lot of things over the middle that, frankly, New Mexico State just did not cover. A lot of cushion, and frankly just got beat on slant routes. And I think it was just really encouraging to see the speed and the athleticism of these receivers that this coaching staff talked up in the offseason. I think it was really encouraging to see tonight. Again, for one game, it was one game. But if for one night in your Conference USA opener and an opportunity to kind of bring your fan base back, your students are back in town, it was an opportunity, I think, to build some confidence back up, and they certainly did that. So I think offensively, a really encouraging night. Obviously, he put up 49 points. You're going to win most games by doing that. So I definitely feel like offensively, Blake Baker seems to be this quarterback as far as the passer moving forward. We saw tonight that Trey Kukuk, was kind of the running quarterback. He obviously had the 40-yard touchdown pass to Marlon Jackson, but he pretty much was in there on run packages, either as handoffs or design runs. And I think, frankly, that's a smart option. Obviously we saw at the goal line, in the red zone that he still has some decision-making issues, whether even if he does get rid of the ball. Obviously we saw that the linebacker for New Mexico State just kind of jumped that route and made him pay, for a bad decision. So I think at times that Trey can pass the football. I think it needs to be very selective. I think it needs to be in the right situation. And I think he's proven that at times he can be an effective runner. We've obviously seen at times where I think he thinks that there's lanes there to run, and he just kind of runs into a wall. And I think they kind of get a little stubborn at times trying to make him a runner. I think he needs to be out in space more. I don't think running him up the gut is necessarily the best option. I think quarterback power, get him on an outside, get your blockers in space. I think that's the best opportunity for him as a runner. And then you let Bake establish himself as the passer. And so I think overall, I think it was really encouraging offensively tonight. Again, you put up the yardage that you do, you score as many times as you do with the amount of people that you do weaponry-wise. I think it was just a really encouraging night offensively. I'm curious to see if Blake can keep this up. Again, going into his second collegiate start, going away eventually from Joy Stadium, I'm curious to see if his consistency can last. Because I think if he does, this defense is in position where they're going to make plays. This is 3 games in a row now with a takeaway for this defense. And obviously, 2 straight home games for this defense, to open the 2025 season with a defensive score. So I definitely feel like if this defense just continues to play at a top 25 level and this offense can find consistency early enough on, man, if you scored 3 touchdowns, like the way this defense is playing, like I don't see a reason why you should not win every single game. So, again, I know it's a lot to ask. This offense has shown us a lot of frustration at times, and this offense has stalled out. And obviously, you saw it tonight in the third quarter. 4 straight punts in the third quarter did not capitalize and kind of put their foot down until the fourth, and obviously those takeaways helped. So, I definitely feel like this offense still has a lot more to prove, and I think Blake has still a lot more to prove. Tony Franklin has a lot more to prove. But again, for your Conference USA opener, I think it was really encouraging to see a lot of guys step up into some roles. I will say this, though. For as encouraging as it was, and hear me say that, this was an encouraging win. It was a win that you needed. Your quarterback played well. Your run game was excellent. Hear me say that. But at the same time, if you're a Louisiana Tech fan, let's go back to last year, the Middle Tennessee game. And again, I know the situation is not a 1-for-1, but I just think back to, when I came to Joe Ice Stadium last year, coming off Louisiana Tech's bye week, the Bulldogs were 1-3. They had just changed offensive play callers. Sonny Cumbie officially gave up play calling duties for the last time. Nathan Young took over, and they put up over 40 points just like tonight. And they blow out Middle Tennessee, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, like, okay, this offense, Evan Bullock, like, wow, this is. Here we go. They figured it out. They knew exactly what they needed. And then the following week, they go on the road and ironically lose to New Mexico State in double overtime. And you're thinking, okay, like, does this offense have it? And then obviously we saw as the season went on, Sam Houston, UTEP, Western Kentucky. I mean, there were multiple opportunities where this offense just completely fell on its face, did not execute in the red zone, and obviously you got the season that they got. So I think I would just maybe caution Louisiana Tech fans out there that they were really encouraged by tonight, and that's awesome. And I'm telling you, be encouraged. Continue to believe that Blake Baker might be the answer. He might be. Frankly, this offense has tried out Evan Bullock and Trey Kukuk, and clearly to the coaching staff standards, and I think to the production standards of this program, has not been at a level that they want. Again, I still am kind of curious as to why Evan Bullock is relegated to third string at this point, but that's the coaching staff's decision. I'm not a football coach, but I certainly just feel like the production that he showed last year, I think, kind of warrants him maybe getting some more opportunities. And again, just there's a lot of season left. We're only 3 games in, but I definitely feel like Evan should be getting more opportunities. But I guess I would just maybe go back to that Middle Tennessee game where you come out of it really encouraged and think, okay, is this the moment where Louisiana Tech finds itself? Is this the moment where this offense finally turns the corner? Obviously, they didn't. I think I would just say let's pump the brakes. Let's give them. They gotta come back here next week and take care of a Southern Miss program that just went and beat a pretty good Appalachian State program. Southern Miss in a first year of a head coach is 2-1. So I definitely feel like Southern Miss is going to come in here. The rivalry is there. These fan bases hate each other. The energy at Joe Ice Stadium I expect is going to be pretty high. And so I would say let's see how they look next week. Let's see how they look with Blake Baker. There's film on him as a starting quarterback. There's film on this offense with him as the starting quarterback, running the football, passing the football downfield. There's film of the dual quarterback system with him and Trey. Let's see what that looks like. And if they come out here next week and they put up 40 points against Southern Miss, then I'll be on here to talk about, okay, this offense is pretty for real. But I'm not going to fall for it again because I sat here almost at this exact time last year, and I came out of that Middle Tennessee game thinking, okay, maybe this is the moment where they turn the corner, and they didn't. So I think Louisiana Tech clearly has a lot to prove, and we cannot give them the benefit of the doubt at this point. And so I would just say that they got to prove it against Southern Miss next week, and then they got to go on the road to UTEP and Kennesaw State, and they got to say, this offense is for real. We found our quarterback. Our play caller understands what this offense needs, and we're going to roll from there. So that's just my 2 cents overall. Obviously, again, really encouraging that offensively. Your running backs produced. I think you have multiple running backs that are really encouraging. Andrew Burnett, Clay Featherin, and obviously Omari Wiggins. I think that's a really solid stable of guys right there. And then if Blake Baker can be the running quarterback that he was tonight with over 100 rushing yards, you're going to take that as well. And then obviously what he did in the passing game, if this offense can produce, again, all I think Louisiana Tech needs at this point, if you can score 3 touchdowns, if you can score 4 times, if you could score 3 times in the first half, the way your defense is playing, like, you're gonna win most of your games. So again, I leave this game tonight encouraged. It's a win. You're 1-0 in conference play. You're 1-0 in the games that truly matter. So that's the most important thing. And let's see what this offense has in store. And I'm going to be right there with you to see if this offense is for real. Because if it is, I think Louisiana Tech is in business, and we'll find out here in the coming weeks. So that's going to do it for this edition of Tech in 10. I appreciate you all listening here on this late Saturday, I guess, morning now, going into Sunday morning. And I appreciate you all listening. Have a good one.